Hello, I'm Brezak, Brkan, and I'm going to talk about the tech founder's first content marketing plan. Now, before we start, how many of you here are founders of their startups? Okay, thank you. How many of you are marketeers working for a startup or tech company? Okay, and I guess everyone else is doing something else, which is nice. I'm Ivan. You can spam me at these addresses, tweet me, or Instagram me. I'm not as active on social media as I once was. But hey, I'll reply in a month or two or three or something like that. I run a small website called Netokracija. TechCrunch has called us the TechCrunch of the Balkans, which is something I always quote for obvious reasons. But we're a magazine that writes about technology and startups and innovators, obviously you guys, in the countries of the former Yugoslavia. So Croatia, Serbia, Slovenia. We also, of course, visit Romania. I've been coming to How to Web for 8 years now. So Jesus Christ, it's been a long time. Netokracija has been active for 10 years. And before, or at the same time, in a previous life, I also did digital marketing and content marketing for different companies like the .me domain name, A1 Telecom, and Microsoft. So for example, for Microsoft, I was the editor of their Croatian technology and business portal. The idea there was to create a place where techies would go and learn about how to use Microsoft technologies to empower their businesses, while for A1, we did the whole content platform, and for .me, we worked on their official blog and content strategy for 7-ish years. So yeah, I like long projects. What we're going to talk today, of course, is content marketing. You've heard it, I'm sure, a lot, and everyone talks about content marketing. That's the way you promote startups. It's inbound marketing. You write blog posts and you create useful content. Content is king, yada, 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 yada. And we've seen all the infographics. I'm sure you've seen, I don't know, spam from Neil Patel about, oh, you can do content marketing like this. And I mean, I love Neil Patel. I've learned a lot of stuff from his podcast and his blog. The problem is, 10 years on, since we've been following the startup ecosystem, unfortunately, regional companies, regional startups, tech startups, it doesn't even have to be a tech company, have still not learned how to do content right. Very few and far between actually know how to do marketing right at all, especially in the early stages. And personally, I've seen maybe a dozen companies in Croatia that have done content marketing in the right way. And again, if you want to learn about specific tactics, maybe how to optimize your titles, or maybe how to write that great series of posts that's going to get every customer you want, go right ahead, Google content marketing. I'm sure you'll get all these different and nice infographics. This one's a bit older. We have Squidoo still active and the old Twitter logo. But yeah, as far as specific tactics, please Google them. I won't be talking to them because the issue is we haven't sorted the basics out. People think that content marketing is writing a blog. They think that it's churning out a lot of content. And that's not what I'm going to talk about today. I'm not going to talk about specific things that honestly you don't need me for. What I will talk about is why, with all the resources we have, and we're techies, right? We're geeks. We know how to Google shit. We know how to find stuff on the internet. With all that free information, free resources, why is it still a problem for a company from Central and Eastern Europe to create really good content and through it attract customers, attract maybe partners, it can be B2C, B2B, whatever. So let's plan the content. Let's create your content marketing plan. And this is the first step where I see both founders and their teams honestly going in the wrong direction. The issue is that they decide, or they see like HubSpot, right? They see so many cool Silicon Valley companies doing content marketing, such a cool blog post, such a good intro or whatever, an infographic, a white paper, and they say, I want to do that. Let's do that every week. Let's do more and more of it. And what do? Because they're techies, and I'm sure you did this as well, they install WordPress because they can. They get a theme and modify it because you can. And they say, okay, let's do content. They create it for maybe weeks, maybe months, and in the end, they're not happy. Why? Well, they've been writing a lot of content, and no one's reacted. No one's bought their product. They think useful content, but no one's reacting. What's happening? What's wrong? And of course, because they don't have a big budget, they're doing it themselves. Patience. Let's not focus on the different content posts. Let's see a more high-level strategy, per se. Why? Well, when I was at the start of my career, and I actually started as a journalist, a tech journalist, I started writing about hardware, not for long, then about games, not that much, and then in 2008, I fell in love with the startup world. I attended my first startup conference in Croatia. The conference, like many startups, lasted for 2 years. It didn't continue after 2009. I know, I helped with the PR in 2009. I hope they didn't discourage the conference. But I fell in love with the startup world, and I started writing my own blogs, writing about startups, et cetera, et cetera. And because I knew how to write, I knew how to create a nice headline, a nice article, it just seemed natural. You sit down, you write, do it every week, success, right? You remember that South Park graphic or meme? It's like, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, success. That'll work. That'll obviously work. Unfortunately, and if you've been following the media ecosystem, we've seen a lot of tech and startup blogs like mine fail. They start, they work for a year or 2 years, then the founder gets frustrated. Why? Because there's no money. Advertisers are not piling up. They are seeing the content, but no one's buying ad space. Seem familiar, right? Why is no one reacting to the content? And again, because I was a young, naive journalist, I didn't know that I had to create a sales team, think strategically about my content, and it's the same is true for startups. The first problem that startups go into when they create content is they're fucking spammers. And you guys are as well. If you think that you're doing the world a service by creating useful, quote-unquote, content every week, and no one's reading it because they don't get it, or you don't know how to optimize for SEO, or, oh, fuck, Facebook is so expensive these days, yeah, that's wrong. You're just probably publishing content into the void, and you're a spammer. I'm sorry. If you're just creating content that's useful for you, but for nobody else, that's not the point. The first thing you need to ask yourself from a strategic level is, what's the goal of your content? Why? Because most startups think, well, we'll publish content, people will come in. Okay, they'll come in, they'll do what? Oh, they'll buy my product. How? Well, they'll click on the register button. Okay, so you're telling me that if you do a listicle, 40 ways to, for example, in my industry, 40 ways to buy ad space in the media, you think that media guy is going to, or the agency's guy is going to like just click on buy ad space on Netokracija? They're not. Why? Well, in the tech sector, at too many times we think of ourselves as the customer. We simplify, we hope, we think that we have the best product, and it's so obvious. If we put a simple reason, they'll go and buy. But the point is that you're not thinking of your funnel. You're not thinking of what the intent of your blog is. The intent of your blog is not for people to register for a product for free. It's for people to come in, maybe subscribe to a newsletter, but even more importantly, not being that practical, it's for them to think of you as an expert. It's been 10 years that I've worked on Netokracija, and I've amassed a lot of lists, newsletter lists, right? You put up the sign-up form on MailChimp, and you get a list, and people sign up. You know the problem with my lists? Well, I kind of didn't have time to set up a newsletter for them. I kind of had people signing up, and nothing happened. No one sent them an email. But the blog kept growing and growing and growing. Why? Well, the goal of the content was for them to come the next day. The idea was not for them to sign up for a newsletter. I mean, it would be awesome if I actually used the fucking newsletter plugin that I installed. The goal was to consume as much content as possible, because that's the media business. What you need to think when you're talking about content from a startup's perspective is not your goal is to get them to sign up for a newsletter, to register for a product, but how do you want to make them feel? If you're solving their problem, you want them, first of all, to understand that your brand can help. The registering and everything else is secondary. You'd want to get them to think of you as an expert, a help that they can rely on. Because these are very practical things. And if you say, oh, I'm going to attract people, who are you attracting? One thing is content marketing. So you're obviously attracting people to get your product or service. The second one is employer branding. How many of you want to attract talent thanks to your blog? So developers or designers? No one? Everyone's doing product? OK, that's good. But the problem is a lot of startups confuse the two. They want to attract talent. They want to also attract customers, partners, investors, et cetera, and they think that by targeting them on Facebook or Twitter or through some mailing list, they're going to achieve this. If you do 10 pieces of content that look like an advertisement for your company, do not tell me that bigger companies are selling ads and you're creating useful content. Because you know all those ads that companies like Procter & Gamble and I don't know who I'm going to, oh, let's look at Red Bull, right? Red Bull doesn't do marketing. I know the media marketeer that runs them in Croatia, and she says they don't do marketing, or they don't do normal sales, the normal advertising. Why? They create projects. Right? They create projects that basically get so much attention, they're useful. That's bullshit. It's stunts. Everyone does stunts. Red Bull does them right, but they're still stunts. The same goes for you guys. Yeah, you're creating content, but if you're putting that logo up and putting a register mark and giving me a pop-up, you're doing advertising. I'm so sorry. You are not useful. You're not a blog. You're still doing advertising, and your reader or viewer, if you're doing video, is coming in and saying, oh, they're trying to sell me something. So let's plan the content, but not yet. Why? Because you have to think of your audience. For some reason, you do, of course, think of your audience and who you want to buy your product. It can be the CEO of Fortune 500. It can be a lonely marketeer. It can be myself. Although if you're creating a product for the media business, there's no money in it. Don't look at me as a customer. But the issue is you never go in depth. There's a reason why, and I don't know how much advertising experience or creative like advertising experience you have, but getting the insight of who your customer is, how do they feel, all the bullshit that you hate about marketing has a purpose, right? If you want to get, for example, a person in their late 30s or early 40s to buy your product, and you see that most of the people that register for your product are women, or if you see that their parents, if you create content that doesn't appeal to their professional logical side, where they see, okay, it makes sense why that product is useful, but you appeal to their emotional side, you appeal to, for example, women in tech, or you appeal to parents, right? We've had posts and we've had conferences where we talk to our readers as parents, not just as techies or customers, and they've reacted far more. I've just started selling a new project of ours. It's basically women in tech, but like moms in tech. It's useful, don't get me wrong. But you know what? It's so easy to sell. Why? Because emotionally, all my customers who are women who react, that's awesome, because they know the feeling. They know how much they need help. They need that type of content and event to help them grow. I can give them all the logical lists, listicles, and whatever, and they'll never react as if I gave them something that they can latch onto. And that might be a problem with a lot of tech startups. If you're building technology, you're thinking of your audience and getting to them in a too logical way. You're thinking maybe of optimizing your Facebook ads, right? You want to spend less, target better. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's not going to work. Maybe it's your creative. Maybe you're sending the wrong message. You might get it for 0.0005 cents, but it's not the algorithm. It's what you're saying with it. A good example of this that I found when I was doing, I'm actually going to do a YouTube vlog with my mom. We're going to do food videos. Why? Because she's been writing about food for 25 years, and I've been loving food for 30 years. Now, if you see this insight, and this is from Google. So there's a very cool site called Think with Google. They do insights there. Basically, they tell you what your customers want. So for me, when I was looking, what type of video do we want to do, what type of content, I looked at their research and looked, okay, so if we're doing entertainment, so if we're doing like wacky videos, I'm like, so one idea that a colleague of mine had, yeah, Ivan, you should cook, and a professional cook should cook with you, and you should fail in it. And I'm like, great content. I want to be a fucking basket case on YouTube. Anyways, food entertainment is for millennial dads and millennial men, while moms love, for example, exploration, right? Food creativity, ideas. And like, you could say, I'm creating a YouTube food series, and you could experiment with all these formats. But if you're not targeting each of these groups, you're failing. And of course, this requires experimentation. I'm not saying to just use your gut. Use the data, but explore your targets. Because if you're just saying, oh, I'm going to target, I don't know, CFOs, and that's the extent of your research, and you're going into, oh, they're doing digital transformation in the financial department, so they need yada, 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 but you're not thinking of them as, for example, fathers, or not thinking of them as people who, I don't know, what do CFOs like? Spreadsheets, right? They like spreadsheets. You're not actually, you do not have the full insight of your customer. Let's plan the content. Again, not yet. The second thing you need after you know your audience, after you've found some insights and thought about them, is what are your content resources? Do you have the time? For a lot of founders, again, if you're a tech founder, if you want to create a content marketing strategy, there's two strategies. One is you're going to say you're going to do content. You're not. You don't have the fucking time. I understand you. I founded a media company. So it's a company that creates content. I'm a person that creates content. I don't have time to create content for my company that creates content. Isn't that absurd? I have to force myself to find the time to create the blog post, the video. I spent 2 hours today in hotel, first asking the guy, oh, can I do my vlog here? And then he says, yeah. Then I found the place and I did the vlog for 2 hours. Why? Because I was so tired from my flight that I didn't have the energy to do anything else useful, so I did the vlog. And I'll have a vlog this week. Yay, and my editor will be happy. As founders, you have to understand you won't have time for this shit called content marketing, except if you really want to do it yourself. If you want to be a leader, if you want to do, how many of you know Steliefti, right? Okay, so the guy is like a sales guru. He's a person that can easily create content because he's that type of guy. If you want to be the leader, like of an industry, an insider, expert, create the content yourself because it makes more sense for your company. For my company, a media company, I need to be writing about startups. Why? Because I'm the startup guy. If I'm not writing about it, well, no one is. But don't kid yourself that you personally have the time to create content. And again, please think about hiring someone or outsourcing. Which leads me to a question. Do you have the human resources to do it? A lot of techies forget that they have the perfect human resource, not in the faculties of technology, not in engineering school, but in my kind of school, my kind of college. That's humanistics, that's journalism, right? You have a lot of students, a lot of bright young people that want to work in the tech industry, that feel that STEM is telling them, oh, I have to be a programmer, that'll work for cheap for you, and that they can create an experiment with all the content you want. The issue is you're probably not talking to them. And also, you probably don't know where to find them. Why? Because I've heard it from founders. Where do I find content marketeers? Nowhere. They still don't exist in Central Eastern Europe. You need to create them yourself. You need to get kids in and train them. And also journalists, et cetera, because journalism does not pay as much. What you can also ask is, do you have a budget? Right? Because for a media company, even we have to buy Facebook ads. Right? Even we have to buy ad space to promote some of the content. For you, it might be harder. If you're an early stage startup, it's hard to have a marketing budget. But you have to have it. It can be $100, it can be $10. Create a budget that you can invest in content to make it good quality. It can be sweat-like investment. You can have some kind of partnership with a company that creates content, figure it out, but have some kind of budget, because if you create content on yourself and you don't invest in it, you won't create really good content. And now, finally, we can create the content strategy. When you're thinking about content you want to create, definitely the obvious question is the types of content and the platform. Because why? What I hear from a lot of startups when they say content marketing is, we have to have a blog. Maybe we have to have an infographic. People, I know that HubSpot and a lot of tech companies have taught us that's the way you do content marketing. But that's wrong. Why? Because that's just one part of the potential solution, right? Blogs are just one thing you could do. You can do white papers. You can do events. Events are content, right? This is content marketing for someone. I guess Bogdan, but hey, it's content marketing. The problem with the term content marketing is it's too generic. You're thinking, and in the tech industry, it's too specific. It's blogs, 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 and blogs. That's why you need that audience insight. Because if you know that your audience likes videos, you're going to experiment with video, right? So at Netokracija, what we're doing now is vlogs. Because you know what? Millennials, and that's your ever-increasing customer base, have grown up. They're 30 and older. And you know what they've learned? They've learned to watch YouTube. And you know the type of content there's not that much of on YouTube? Business content, useful content. And don't get me wrong, video content is a bitch to produce. This shit takes far longer than an article. But this type of content reaches an audience that our competition does not. And it's the same true for tech startups. If I were you, I would invest in the content types that are harder to do. It's easy to create a Facebook post, a Twitter post, whatever, a blog, a short one. It's hard to do videos, infographics, ebooks. That's why you don't see them. But video, especially with Facebook and YouTube's algorithms giving us a little boost because they want to make money later on, we know how that'll end, but fuck it, let's use it while it lasts, will give a good return on investment. But again, this depends if your audience is watching YouTube. You have to try, you have to check. We actually did experiments. Are we targeting kids with this or someone else? With all of this content, another mistake I see is people think about content as pieces of content. It's a blog post, a blog post, a blog post, a blog post. Why? Because of course your focus is going to be on the company. The issue with you having a blog or a couple of white papers is you're perceived as someone who from time to time publishes something, but you don't have an audience. You have people that show up, get the content, get out. For the media business, we have readers, we have an audience. We publish content daily, weekly, whatever, and people follow and buy. What I like about certain blogs is that they've created software businesses from themselves. They've had a growing audience, and that's something I'd like to actually see in Central Eastern Europe. I'd like to see someone create a nice content platform and then grow a software product from it. The point is, you need to think of your whole blog, your whole presence as something people like and will visit, not just the individual posts. And of course, you need to be first or best. Your content can be useful, but if you're not the first one to publish it, or you're not the best at it, I'm sorry, what do you expect? You expect your readers to not understand? You expect Google to not get it? There's a reason why in Netokracija we're either the first with an exclusive, and ask anyone from Croatia. The first thing they'll tell you about me is, Fuck that even, he always asks for an exclusive. Because it works. The second thing is you need to be best. And what we do is we wait a bit and then create the best possible content because, again, it gets the most views, it gets the most registrations, etc., etc. At least that's what we do at Netokracija. And if we get back to the budget issue, if you focus on one type of content that appeals most to your target audience, so for example, if you're targeting Gen Z in the US or moms in the US Midwest, YouTube can work perfectly. And if you focus your content on that, for example, you might have like mobile apps or mobile games for, what's the word, for like moms, again, in the Midwest. If you do video and you spend your budget correctly, you'll have a far better return. Okay, I'll skip this one because it's not really on focus. Anyways. If we get back to the strategic point, if I were on your place, what I would do on a budget for content marketing is, one, lease a good content strategist. Find someone that can think about the insights, the customer's needs in terms of content, what they're doing, et cetera, et cetera. Have them create a strategy, right? You might not be the most experienced person to do this, or you might not have hired the most experienced person to do it. But get a good strategy, I know, it can be, I mean, it depends on the market, et cetera, et cetera. But don't have them create the content. They'll be too expensive. Hire a junior person, hire a marketeer, a writer to implement the strategy, to implement the idea that makes sense. Because if you look at it from a technology startup point of view, just putting out blog posts is just like putting out code. If you haven't tested the market, if you don't know who your customer is, what are you doing? And interestingly enough, if you think it that way, a lot of startups don't think of their blog as a startup, but it is. Your product is the content, and what you're doing is churning out things that really no one's reading or no one's watching. As for operational excellence, this is just a little thought from the media industry. It's the same that what we do is colleague or content sprints, have a weekly meeting, and try to get everyone on board each week. Having a monthly calendar or yearly calendar is not going to work. And of course, everything else is going to take a lot of time. To finish up, one thing that I would also like to have you think about is, and honestly, this is coming from someone who sells content marketing as a solution. Content marketing alone is not going to help you sell your product or service. And this is after years of myself thinking that it is. You have to, like the bullshit you hear from TechCrunch, from, at least actually not from TechCrunch, they had an article opposing it, but like from the Neil Patels of this world. And I'm talking to you like someone from Central Eastern Europe. Americans, especially, I'm sorry, I'm generalizing, but fuck it, you're good at selling, are going to sell you the idea that content marketing is going to resolve all the issues you have about selling your product. It's not. You need to talk to someone who knows how to market a product in the broadest terms, like PR and events, et cetera, and then do it step by step. That's the only way. If you think that content marketing is the be-all and the end goal that will make you succeed, it's not. Do content marketing in the beginning, do it strategically, and then, just then, don't forget about marketing in general. And of course, a little quote to end up. Google got better at stopping artificial attempts. Facebook got more expensive. But interestingly enough, according to research, most successful tech companies got the most links back from natural PR, natural publicity, not doing content marketing, doing the whole 9 yards, and being a good startup. Thank you.